Good plan.
Welcome everybody to Personalised Nutrition with Nathan McGregor. His first delivery for the challenge. Very exciting times. So today we're going to really dial into the health types and how they need to look at food and how they can create really great behaviors and relationships with food. They're going to support their health and well-being and their biology, their DNA to turn on the light switch and be happy and well. So that's what it's all about today. And then we're going to dial in to how it looks for each individual. Talk a little bit about that on the call if we can, and just get a little granular with this stuff, because the nutrition aspect of the app is granular. Don't doubt it. It is personalized to you. It's bespoke. I've never seen two food lists the same. So make sure you're engaging with it thoroughly. More on that from Nathan, who I will hand over to now.
Awesome. Thanks, mate.
No worries. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Nice to see you here, team. Nice to see a few familiar faces, which is cool. Very cool. So yes, as Chris said, today is all about personalized nutrition. We're going to go over the health types first, and then we're going to touch a little bit on Shae. Let me just share my screen so we can get started. Okay. Right, let us get underway. So this is kind of what we're going to go through today. We're going to go through each health type, as I said. We're going to go through the perfect day in terms of food for each health type. We're going to get some specifics, some content around eating for each health type relative to things like what you actually consume, when you consume it, and how you consume it. Go kind of through the what, when, where, why, how type aspects. And then we're going to touch a little bit on Shae at the end as well. And we're going to have a look at my Shae profile and get you to reference yours as well. Now, one of the intentions that we have for today is that we actually want you to start thinking about and to set a nutrition-based goal. Now, obviously, we're going to look at your profile when we do this. And the intention is that we give you or help you look at the appropriate information that you can base the goal on. And then ideally, you get in touch with your coach and you tell your coach what that goal is so they can support you in fulfilling that goal. Rightio, let's go through our health types. So we're going to start with the beautiful, beautiful diplomat. Now, each little health type we've got here, we're going to go through a little bit of an overview. So with our diplomats, obviously we know they sit in the lower part of the circle down there. They are of the endomorphic and ectomorphic combination. They feed off serotonin, and their top priorities are place, genius, and fitness. Now, with the diplomat, here are some things that we need to focus on around diplomat nutrition. We need to take into context that they have the longest digestive tract. And so that any food they induce is going to sit in their gut system for a long period of time than most other health types. And what that means is that any food that sits in there for a long period of time, if it is not a food that can be easily processed, then it's probably going to sit in there and it's going to cause digestive issues. It might cause some bloating or any other issues that may arise. You've also got the fact that they are a night owl chronotype. So what that means is that the entire day for a diplomat is shifted back, and that includes the eating. And you'll often find that for you diplomats in your nutrition part of your profile, in the timing part, you'll see that the schedule is your breakfast is slightly later, your lunch is slightly later, and then therefore your dinner is slightly later as well. Everything is set back in the day to coincide with that timing. And we'll come back to that a little bit later on as well. We also know that diplomats can go for long periods without eating, but at the same time, those periods need to be calming and they need to be relaxing. A diplomat who's in stress will often go to food choices that are a lot more satiating and probably not as good for them. Timing is big for a diplomat, as I've already said, and when you eat specifically throughout the day is going to have a major impact on your overall health and well-being. Easily digestible meals that are high in vegetable content. We'll reference this with The Guardian as well, but having vegetables for breakfast is not a bad thing. Might be a new concept to a lot of people, but vegetables for breakfast is definitely going to be something that you can focus on going forward if you fit into the diplomat category. We're going to reduce things like heavy sugars, processed sugars rather, and we're going to go with the concept of have then do. So we need to have the energy to then expend the energy, whereas other health types are more do first and then they can recoup it later on. We need to be considerate with what is being eaten with our diplomats. What's the environment like, and whereabouts are we in relation to what we are eating? And I mean that in a way of, is the environment relaxed? Are we in an environment that is nourishing, that is not stressful? And then are we eating in a conscious way that is going to ensure that we are not scoffing down our food and we don't stress our digestive system? Perfect day for a diplomat looks kind of like this. So you'll see that the biggest meal of the day is lunch, and the morning and the evening meals are relatively about the same size. But you'll also notice that, as I said before, a lot of those meals are shifted back in the day, and we've got an ample amount of time kind of between meals, and there's not as much snacking. Now, obviously, that's reflective of the diplomat health type and what they need. The dinner size generally is based on energy expenditure. And so that means basically if they have expended a good amount of energy throughout the day, then they can have a good dinner. They also need to be conscious that their foods are easily digestible, as I said before, and that from the morning we have some fluids coming into the system to aid that digestion process and make sure everything is flowing smoothly. This is one of the main aspects that we're going to focus on throughout today, is the content, consumption, and chronobiology. So CCC. So with a diplomat, the content we want to be majority vegetables and fruits. Lowering the meat content as much as we can, and focus on the top part of your Shae food list. And one thing I just want to reference before we go any further is that your food list, remember, is specific to you. Your entire profile is specific to you. And so when we talk about this information here, it is specific, but it's also very generalized. And where we get more refined and where we get more intricate is we look at your specific profile and we look at your food list. We look at the top area of your food list and we see what is in the excellent category and we go with that, because that's what's going to help you nourish your body and that's what's going to help your body feel good. Under content, we've also got make the meals full and flavorful. In the consumption category, we're looking at eating with other people. Now, one thing for a diplomat is they are constantly seeking pleasure. And if they're not eating with other people, then they're probably going to seek that pleasure from bad food choices. So what we need to do is we need to create that environment where the diplomat is gaining pleasure from being around other people. It's a social environment and they are very much in a state of pleasure and a state of joy with the people around them. They need to also eat slowly and ensure that digestive system has time to process and that the food is just flowing through, not lumped all in there in one go. And as that last point there says, is the environment relaxed for you to eat in? Is it a nourishing environment that I said before? Is it conducive to you enjoying your meal? The chronobiology aspect, eating, is it the right time for you? Is it the right time for your meal, or are you eating at a time that other people are eating, and are you just eating because they're eating? The ideal for a diplomat is slowly shifting your nutrition back in the day and eating in alignment with your chronobiology, eating in alignment with what your profile says to you. Now, obviously, we'll reference a little bit more of this later on when we look at your specific profile, but take stock of that, you diplomats, and take a couple of those points and just lock them into your brain and just see what you can do going forward. On to our next health type, we have so a little bit of overview. Top priorities being social, food, and sit just above the diplomat, and they are the most endomorphic of our health types. Now, for Guardian nutrition, Guardians need to be involved in eating with other people or consuming food with other people. Sorry, Chris, just saw your message. Yep, jump in, mate.
All good, mate. All good. I just wanted, I'm just going to quickly get you guys to cast your minds back a few moments to the diplomat and just really hammer home a few really, really interesting points. So bear in mind that a diplomat is an endomorph, ectomorph. This is a gut with lots of active dominant nervous tissue. And then when you consider that the gut has 9 times more nervous connections going from it to the brain than it does from the brain to it, that gives you a strong indication on the influence of the gut over the mind. So I just want you to bear that in mind, team. And that applies to all body types. But one could argue that the diplomat is most likely to be impacted by this relationship for that and one other reason. The other reason being is that 90% of our serotonin is made in our gut, 90%. And if you remember back, the diplomat is most sensitive to the levels of serotonin in their body of all the health types, and it is their key neurotransmitter. So just bear that in mind. So that is to say that a happy gut makes for a happy diplo. So yep, that's me, mate. Cheers, mate.
All good, mate. Wise words. Appreciate that. Thank you very much. All right. So back to our Guardian. Eating with other people, eating with your community, eating with the family is what makes a Guardian happy. The ability to skip meals is okay for a Guardian, and you'll often find that for you Guardians in your profile, you'll see that it will say in there that it's okay to fast occasionally, and it's okay to skip breakfast if that is conducive with your lifestyle and how you're living, and obviously nourishes your body. We want food to be delicious and flavorful. So we want those meals to be luscious with lots of flavors in it, but also lots of colors as well. And just generally make the meal exciting and make it a joy to eat. With a Guardian rather, we want the protein content to be lower. And that comes down to, again, that gut system and how they're processing that food. We don't want high protein content to be sitting in that system, which could cause digestive issues. The stresses. So often we find that environmental stresses, stresses that allude to safety and security for a Guardian can impact on their food choices. And so if a Guardian is sensed, the family is stressed or the finances are stressed, then they might go to food choices that are not as beneficial for them, or that give them a little bit of a joyous hit, but not nourishing. So just consider that when we are eating for you Guardians, that your food choices might be based on external influences. Now, a Guardian is one of our conservers, but that means that they will naturally conserve energy, and they're very much of the same as the diplomat, the have then do aspect, where they are storing energy and then they are expending energy. They are susceptible to metabolic diseases as well, hence why you'll see for a lot of a lot of Guardians and diplomats to a certain extent as well, is that your carbohydrate content, particularly your simple carbohydrate content, is nice and low. We don't want to significantly spike your insulin repetitively, because it could lead down the track to metabolic diseases like diabetes and things like that. And as I said before, fasting can be reasonably good as well for the Guardian. Thanks, Talia. All right, the perfect day of food for a Guardian. Nice big breakfast, but as I said before, it is okay sometimes for a Guardian to skip breakfast and fast for that first part of the morning. Like I said before with the diplomat, there is nothing wrong with having vegetables for breakfast, and you'll often see for you Guardians in your profile, in your food list, in your suggestions for breakfast, that there will be a lot of vegetables in there. Welcome that, embrace it, run with the vegetables for breakfast. Now, breakfast needs to ideally set you up for the day, and particularly if you are going to be expending a decent amount of energy for the day, we need that good hit of nutrients earlier on the day. as I said before, have the have then do body type. And we also need to ensure that the guardian is supported by other people within their community, within their family, and that the family is eating well, and then therefore the guardian is eating well as well. The digestive part of the guardian is that we need to lower the intake into the evening meals so that that digestion can rest overnight and it's not involved in processing anything too heavy. The CCC for the guardian is a large amount of vegetables for the content, and just ensuring that each meal has a good amount of vegetables in there. And again, this is where we reference your food list, look at those top foods and see what we can include. Questions for guardians is, what are you craving? And if you're craving something, are you stressed? Reflecting back on those external influences and that safety security mechanism. If something is threatening or you feel it's threatening your safety and security, then you might see those cravings pop up to foods that are not as beneficial for you. And like I said before, the content needs to be full, colourful, and flavourful. The consumption for a diplomat is we need to eat with others. We need to get our community involved, our co-workers involved. So for you diplomats in the Healthcare New Zealand office, when you're eating lunch, try and eat with other people. Try and be around other people. Try and have that connection with other people and ensure that you're in a relaxed, stress-free environment and you just love the people you're being around. And remember that you don't always have to eat. So check in with yourself. And what I mean by that is simply because other people are eating. Now, remember the guardian body type is a naturally conserving body type. So eating because other people are eating and you actually don't feel like eating, you're potentially going to overeat and we're going to consume an excess amount of calories. And as the guardian body type naturally does, it will conserve energy and it will put on body mass. We also need to be conscious with our eating and present in the moment to make sure that we are actually enjoying the food and the mind is not wandering elsewhere. Chronobiology for the guardian is, are you starting, whoop, sorry, my bad with that one. Get off the mouse, Nathan. Let's go back. Are you starting your day with a good quality meal? Are you including vegetables in that meal? Are they nourishing to your body? And actually having breakfast at the start of your day. And actually having it at a time that works for you and nourishes your body. Also reflecting on what time of day do you normally get stressed? Is there a particular time of day where you feel triggers or stresses come about? And does that correlate with when you start to crave food? How can you mitigate that by preparing your food and preparing your environment around that? Okay, on to the next one, connector. So connector, an overview, think, love, and live, or basically mind, their social and their environment is the biggest influences for them. Now, the fun-loving connector is summed up with this little picture here. So they are the loyal puppy dog. They love fun. They love to be involved in anything that is pleasurable and enjoyable, based on the general life of the party. And so with a connector's nutrition is they need to feel that they are in an enjoyable environment and that they are enjoying their meal. If it's not enjoyable, then they're probably not going to get as many benefits from eating, and they're potentially going to choose foods that are not beneficial for them. They're going to go for something that gives them a short hit of joy or satisfaction and not actually prepare or go for foods that are better or nourishing towards them. Like the guardian connectors, we need variety. We need all of these things in here to ensure that they are actually enjoying their meal. And preparedness can be a beneficial part for a connector's eating as well. So making sure that you are prepared with food and meals, because often or not, if a connector is not prepared, then they can, again, make those choices that are not going to be as beneficial for them and not nourish their body. Variety is a must with a connector is the main point we want to take away from this one. Perfect day of food looks like this. So we want those substantial 3 meals a day. Now, contrary to popular belief, you would have noticed already that of our health types don't actually have the 6 set meals a day or the 6 eating parts of the day, and the connector is no different. Now, the connector the scope for a morning snack, but that is relative to if they have exercised. Other things like the meals being similar sized are definitely ideal for a connector, and we're eating to roughly about 80% full, so we're not overfilling the tank. We want lots of antioxidants in there as well to combat inflammation, which the connector is naturally prone to. So we're looking at fruits, we're looking at vegetables, we're looking at green leafy vegetables, we're looking at brightly colored fruit, and making sure that we have a lot of those in there. We want to reduce carbs at night, again, to not trigger any digestive issues and not spike our insulin for the connector. As I said before, the morning snack is dependent on whether they have exercised or not in the morning. All right, CCC for a connector, the content, lots of colors, lots of variety, and a variety of not only colors and textures and flavors, but also cuisines. Stick with what you've always done. Try new cuisines, because that's what's going to make your food regime a lot more exciting and a lot more enjoyable. And as I said before, lots of antioxidants as well. Consumption, eat with people. The connector is all about social interaction, social connection, and feeding off other people. So if the connector is eating alone, that meal is probably not going to be as beneficial to them as if they are eating with a group of people. So get around other people, enjoy that meal, have that social connection. Be prepared with your choices, making sure that we have some choices available so that if something comes up, then we're not stuck and we're not going to go for a potentially bad or a not so good choice. Make it special, make it fun. We need to enjoy the meal. We need to make the experience of eating a special and a nourishing event. We also like go with the 3 here with a connector as well. But again, the morning snack is depending on if they're exercising. And the afternoon snack might be ideal if they feel like their energy is tapering off towards the end of that time. And can we also make those meals with others? Can we time those meals with others? Can we coordinate parts of the day where others are eating and so you will eat, or that others need to eat as well, so you eat? And again, but timing it with what Shae in your personal profile says about you. All right, the activator, the fiery activator, fitness, food are the main influences for an activator. Now, these guys are our mesodermic orientated health types. They are all about action and all about activity. They've got a fast fiery metabolism and they've got a fast digestion as well. And generally, so anything that goes into the activator body will generally get processed fairly quickly. Hence why you'll find for you activators that meat is quite high on your list, because it can process meat very efficiently. And that's just not just meat as well. And in general will sit fairly high on your list. The activator doesn't need as much food in the morning because they have a natural energy spike to get them going. And they are a natural early bird chronotype, which means that their energy and their natural circadian rhythm will rise earlier in the morning. But at the same time will peak and trough throughout the day. This is the health type that gets hangry. If you don't feed this person, they will get grumpy. So the key here is to have consistent meals throughout the day and just regular eating. And this is what that looks like. So you'll see here that we have regular eating throughout the day. We've got our biggest meal in the evening to replenish a lot of energy that has been expended throughout the day. We've got those morning snacks, we've got the afternoon snacks, and we've got a decent lunchtime meal as well. The hormone high and lows of the activator are matched by their food. So they have peaks and troughs of that natural energy, and so we need to have peaks and troughs of that food as well. We need to get high omega fats for an activator, and we also need to get high animal protein. Good variety in their food is vital as well. Like the connector, they like to have variety. They like to have a good spread of choices and ensure that they are getting multiple textures, flavors, and cuisines in there. They burn through calories fairly easily, which is why we've got this regular eating time frame. and it's generally a high energy in, high energy out kind of scenario. The content consumption and chronobiology for an activator. Plenty of animal protein. And again, this is where we reference your Shae profile, because an activator can be in a state where animal protein or meat protein is in their Shae list. So it's a matter of referencing your profile and seeing what that says in your food list. And we're also going to look for foods that create dryness in the body and potentially create coolness. The activator body is a body that naturally produces heat. And so to eat foods that balance that out with a little bit of coolness and a little bit of dryness is going to be really beneficial. Consumption, being present in the moment with your food and also with the people you are with, not just mindlessly waffling down the food, being consciously intentional with what you are eating in the moment, and be with fun, engaging people. Regulating throughout the day for their chronobiology, for the timing, and ensuring that the time of the food, or the timing of their eating rather, aligns with their natural energy rhythms throughout the day. And like I said before as well, early bird eating. So ensuring that they do eat in the morning, particularly if they've done exercise, they might need those snacks throughout the day, that their energy is as the day goes along. Crusader health type, naturally the best health type. I only say that because I'm biased. So Crusader health type, the main influences are mind, genius, and place. So basically how their mind functions, their natural kind of talents and genius, and also their environments. Now, for the Crusader health type, you're going to find that in your food profile, you have based around carbohydrates. So we've got high carbohydrate intake, and this is all to do with the brain function and the nervous system. They use up a lot of energy. And so to replenish that energy, to replenish glycogen and glucose stores, we need a lot of carbohydrates coming from that brain activity and that nervous system activity. You'll also find that, as it says there, stimulants are very low on your thing that is like or alcohol or processed sugars that is going to stimulate or bind in the nervous system is going to be low on your food list. It's already high activity, so we want to keep those low so we don't overwork it. The why behind why we're eating is going to be crucial for a Crusader. So ensuring that we go into our profile and we look at our food list and we understand why exactly we are eating this way, what is it going to do for us, and making sure that we understand the reasoning and the meanings behind all of these food suggestions. Regular intake of carbohydrates, as I've said, and an early bird biology, like the activator, means that we're going to eat early in the morning and we're going to have fairly consistent meals throughout the day. Negative, one of the bad things that a Crusader can get into is the habit of forgetting to eat or not eat. And so one of the parts of our, when it goes to it, there we go. Our timing schedule here is ensuring that we have time allocated to eat. We have those eating times slotted into our diary so that we don't forget to eat and we don't essentially not consume food throughout the day. Because although it may seem counterproductive to take time out of your day to eat, you will actually be more productive and you will be more efficient if you do consume food regularly. Well-cooked meals are vital for the Crusader, making sure that we have well-cooked proteins, but also well-cooked vegetables and carbohydrates as well, and ensuring that we have a decent amount, or the majority of our meals are warm meals, provide warmth to the body. Any foods that induce coolness or cool the body down, again, is going to be a stressor on the Crusader body. So we want to ensure that warm foods are a mainstay of our diet. A diet rich in minerals from fruits, water, and vegetables, and also snacking is essential for the Crusader. We want to make sure, like I said before, that regular eating is in there. The CCC content for a Crusader, like I said, plenty of carbohydrates. We want to fuel that brain activity and that nervous system. We also want well-cooked meals, high in vitamins, nutrients, and minerals. With a Crusader, like I said before, we can often get lost in other activities and not be present with our eating. We can also forget to eat. So with a Crusader, being mindful, being conscious, being intentional, and being focused with our eating, and making sure that when we are eating, we are actually focusing on the eating. And because if we're not, we can let our mind wander, and then we can either overconsume or we can end up making choices that are not beneficial for our body. You'll notice that there are, for most of the health types, again, when we're not present, we're not conscious of what we're eating, we can make those bad choices. But as I say, it can be different stresses and different triggers for different body types. Taking the time out to eat, like I said before, ensuring that you have scheduled eating times throughout your day that is going to fuel your productivity and fuel your workload. Understanding the why. So get into your Shae profile, understanding why those food suggestions are made the way they are and why your time is structured the way it is going to give you good reasoning to make sure that you do some positive changes. Regular eating, as I said, and essential to get some morning and afternoon snacks in, again, to ensure that consistent eating is structured throughout the day. All right. The last one of our 6 health types. So the sensor main influences are mind, place, and food. For the sensor, now this is the body type that is very, very, not fragile, but very light. They don't hold a lot of mass. And so for a sensor, very similar to a Crusader, warm foods are vital. So we need to ensure that we are providing warmth, we are providing nourishment to the body, and that we're not causing stress by taking in a lot of cooling foods. The body composition of a sensor doesn't change very much relative to the food that they're eating, but at the same time, it can cause stresses to things like their nervous system. So their metabolism will naturally increase or decrease relative to what they're eating. But if they are eating in excess of, let's say, carbohydrates or heavily processed sugars, then they're going to find that their nervous system naturally goes into overdrive, their mood changes, they probably get grumpy, and that will have an effect then on their overall well-being. For a sensor, eating time should be relaxed because they are naturally highly stimulated. Eating time should be relaxed in a way that doesn't overstimulate them, and we should be consciously focused on our food and what we're eating. So a quiet environment, no loud noises, and just generally thinking about the food and what we're processing. Digestive system needs to be calm and needs to be relaxed to ensure that the food that goes through the sensor system is processed adequately. Day in the life of a sensor for food. Again, we see those regular eating patterns. So we see the 3 main meals and then we see the 2 snacks in between. And this is because, like I said before, the sensor needs that regular energy intake to balance out their expenditure or the energy expenditure. And most of that will come from their brain and nervous system activity. So ensuring that they're intaking regular carbohydrates, that they've got those consistent small meals. And you'll see here, if you remember back to, say, for example, the Guardian had a nice big breakfast at the start of the day, whereas the sensor doesn't. So making sure those meals are appropriate for your particular health type. The sensor can be highly susceptible to digestive issues if they're eating incorrectly. So if they're eating foods that are uncooked, well cooked, and cooling foods, or if they're eating anything that is highly processed, then that can cause digestive issues, which will then just have bigger ramifications on their overall body. Content for the sensor, regular carbs is pretty much the mainstay of their content. Limit the cold foods and how much protein they intake. Again, we want the body and the system to not be stressed. And so cooling foods and protein can stress that system and cause further issues as well. High-fat foods to help protect the nervous system and to help protect that brain tissue is going to be vital. So like your omegas are going to be really, really good. So look for foods in your food list that have those. Consumption, everything is well cooked, even vegetables. We want to ensure that they're well cooked, because so they are warm, but also B, so that the digestive system can process them adequately. Eating in a relaxed state and conscious, intentional focus on what we're eating and ensuring that we keep our digestive system in a calm, relaxed state. The chronobiology, we want to ensure that there is consistent eating throughout the day, that there is an early meal in the morning, and that we are have intertwined our eating with our energy expenditure. So very much like the Crusader and the Activator to a certain extent, that when we have high peaks of brain activity or work activity and we are really expending a good amount of energy, we then need to, after that, bring in some energy intake to combat and replenish those stores. Right, that is for our health types. So what we're going to do now is we are going to have a look at your Shae profile. And when we look at your Shae profile, I want you to consider these few questions. So we want to consider what we're eating, when we're eating, where we're eating, why we're eating, how we're eating, and who we're eating with, because all of these questions play a massive part in the consumption of our food. So what I would like you to do is grab your phone and open up your Shae app. Now I'm going to open my Shae app on my dashboard here, so you can see what it looks like. Chris, can you just give me a thumbs up if you can see my dashboard there? Cool, thank you. Awesome. Okay, so on your Shae app, see the food section, you'll see overview, food list, food guide, all this kind of thing. So what we're going to look at first is we're going to look at the food guide. Okay, now this has a whole range of foods. So you'll see here in mine, we've got vegetables in general, we've got green leafy vegetables, we've got root vegetables, beans, fruits, dried fruit, animal proteins, etc. So what this section does is it gives you a good indication as to how we should best consume and prepare these foods. So for example, for me, you'll see in this section here, it says anything that is cooking or warming up the food is going to be beneficial. With our green leafies, again, just a high intake of that to ensure that I'm getting good quality nutrients and minerals. You'll also see if I scroll down to animal protein, you'll see again, make sure it's cooked protein and obviously well-cooked protein. But this section here, what we can look at different areas or different groups. We can refer food lists to pair food together that is beneficial to each other. And particularly if we are, cooking, some vegetables or certain vegetables because we need to intake them into our diet, then we can also look at how to pair meat with that as well, and what meat is going to be beneficial to aid in the nutrients and minerals that we're getting from those vegetables. The next section that is a vital piece to reflect on is the preparation. So this goes into good detail as to how we can prepare food. Now, you might notice in mine that this first one here is raw, whole, or unprocessed food. And you might think, well, Nathan, you said that Crusaders need to eat cooked food or warm food. Yep, totally true. But when we cook a lot of food, we can often destroy or degenerate a lot of the nutrients and a lot of the valuable contents within that food. And so for a Crusader, we do need to eat a certain amount of. And if I go down here, this statement here is vital because it tells me Basically says raw or whole unprocessed food allows the body to obtain plenty of nutrients in a most natural way. Basically saying that because it's not cooked, the nutrients in that, vitamins, minerals, and the molecules that make up all of those will be in their most natural form and won't be destroyed from the cooking process. As we go down, you'll see that steamed foods here is really good for me, poached or boiled as well. Right hand side over here, we have how they rank. So raw foods, actually quite good for me, rated excellent. Steamed and poached foods we've got down as great. If we keep scrolling down, we'll see that cold foods we've got down as good. So they're not as beneficial to me. There's still some cold foods in there that are going to be good, but they're not as highly ranked as these ones up here. Now, what we can do is we can obviously look at how we prepare all of this food, and then we can go into our food list. Now, with our food list, there's a whole lot of foods in here, 502 found on my list. What we want to do is we want to focus on the top section. So generally what we encourage people to do is look at all of these excellent foods. Now, for me, I've got quite a few, so I've got a good range to select from. There's definitely other health types that won't have as many excellent ranked foods. That's when we start to include the great and the good as well. But looking at these foods and seeing how many of those foods you currently have in your diet on a regular basis, but then also B, how many can you then include or supplement? And that doesn't mean that you need to revolutionize your entire diet. What we need to think about doing is taking small steps and ensuring that we change small things at a time. We're not trying to change the entire day. We're trying to change small little bits of eating throughout the day. And then over time, those changes, those habits will compound into a better overall day of eating, which will then compound into a better overall week of eating. And then once we do that on a regular basis, obviously, we will start to see some changes and some benefits in our body, and we'll start to feel a whole lot better. Now, I do believe, in reference to personalised food, Mr. Chris White has a fantastic little story that he could share with us relative to his food list and relative to activators.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks very much, Nath, by the way. Brilliant stuff so far. And really nice moving into a more precise area of the app. And what I want to just reiterate before I tell this little anecdote is the importance of realizing that your profile, the precision within it is so key and so valuable and so in depth. Nath, just while I'm chatting, if you could just dial into one of those food types in front of you on that list there. And the reason I'm asking Nath to do that is you can see there's a list of recommendations as to why beef appears on this particular list. And they're quite expansive. And they're not just expansive, they're specific. So when you filled out the medical questionnaire, there would have been certain questions on what disease is present, what signs and symptoms, what are the semiotics in this body that tell us it will do well to eat foods containing selenium, or it will do well to eat foods containing, let's say, calcium, because this particular person or this particular health type, usually both, is going to benefit at this point in time. So I just want to really reiterate that, because that it means it's dynamic. And that dynamism is based on your phenotypic expression, i.e., you have this blueprint of DNA that is currently expressing due to the environment it's been exposed to in a certain way. Now, the reason I've set up my story with that little reminder on that piece there, that it's so specific and so dynamic, is because I noticed that my skin over summer was really flaring up to and reacting quite poorly to the heat. And so I did some digging because I'm really interested in the nutritional aspects of the app. And one of the factors and one of the influences that is informing these decisions in the precise side of the app is, for example, Chinese medicine. And Chinese medicine will talk to the yin and yang elements of certain foods. So that's to say that you can classify any food as a yin food, a yang food, or neutral. Now, why is that important? It's because I was experiencing a very heat-based reaction to certain foods. Now, what was interesting, my diet had shifted because I've been living on a farm for some time. And as a result, I'd been exposed to a slightly different diet that included some yang element foods. That in that list would have been venison. I drink coffee quite regularly, which can be a bit of a yang food, and a couple of other things that had been introduced. And there was an absence, perhaps, of some of the normal foods that will help cool my body internally. So I just want to say that it's not a straightforward thing that you're a cool body, so you need cool foods. Sometimes it will depend on the season. Sometimes it will depend on where your phenotype is at right now, where your body is at right now. So my body was having these heat responses. I switched up. I went to eating more white fish again because that was available readily here. I was actually catching it. And I also made sure that I included other foods that I knew would add a cooling element to my body, like goat's milk and certain yogurts, and also vegetables and fruits. Lemon, for example, is an acidic food that actually creates an alkaline response when it's metabolized. So we end up with this cooling element going on. And what happened was within 48 hours, the heat rash that I'd been experiencing had disintegrated entirely. And it wasn't the only symptom, but that symptom just disappeared, but almost overnight. It was just over 24 hours. It was unbelievably quick. And what this just reiterates to me, and when I look at my food list, these foods are there and they are included and they are recommended. Just reiterates to me that Shae is really, really on point and in tune with where you're at right now. So really dial in, look at the why it's asking you to eat these foods, or at the bare minimum, look at the foods that it's asking you to eat and realize that it is interacting with everything that's going on in your lives, and anything you've expressed in the questionnaire is being translated into the app, and then that is being sent to you and you are being informed on it. So please utilize that facility. Obviously, if I could get a few people on the call, I'm sure Nathan's got a little bit more to work through, but just have a think about any questions you might have regarding the content today, regarding personalized nutrition, regarding your experience with the app, and just be ready to go with any questions around nutrition. But Nathan, I'll hand back to you.
Cool, mate. Thank you. Yeah, very, very cool little anecdote and story there. And just to touch on that as well, for someone like me who is a data kind of sciencey driven person, like to know why things are the way they are. In my food list here in this, we're looking at beef here, there's obviously all these little wee statements, and the natural skeptic in me looks at these statements and think, oh yeah, cool, it's easy to write that. Where's that come from? There's a little wee reference tab here. And so if I really wanted to, I could go and look up all of these studies that give reference to or give indication as to why this statement has been formulated in the way it has been formulated and worded that way, and why it is in my profile. So just to reiterate what Chris said, there is some deep, deep science, research, and intelligence behind why these foods are ranked in your food list the way they are ranked. And I know for people on this call, beef for them will be far down the list. Mm-hmm. And I know for them, foods that are ranked highly on their list probably will be far down my list as well. Look, just to 1 or 2 minutes left, the only thing I was going to wrap it up with was to talk about this, our food list and these aspects of our profile relative to food, and what kind of goal we can set around our nutrition and around our food. And so essentially, I just wanted to throw it out to everyone on the call and basically ask you all, having seen the content and having gone through today's presentation and taken in those little wee points about content consumption and chronobiology for each health type, hoping that you listened for your health type, but have you had to think about what goal you can set for your food? It can be around timing, it can be around content, it can be around who you eat with, when you eat. So for everybody on the call, who would be willing to just jump on their camera and jump on their mic and share with us what you might be thinking around setting a nutrition-based goal that you can then also share with your coach. Who's going to be brave?
We'd love to hear from you. This is a great opportunity to ask any questions regarding personalized nutrition. It'd be also good just to hear if who's learned something today. Just if there's something perhaps any of you have picked up on that you hadn't quite realized about personalized nutrition or nutrition for your health type. Yeah, it'd be really good to get any questions. I know you guys are possibly multitasking, Sue, Shamali, Mandy, Catherine, Tanya, but yeah, this is a really good opportunity for you to just ask us any awkward questions.
Hi.
Hey, Tanya.
Question.
Yes.
So getting vegetables into breakfast, what do you recommend there? Like make smoothies, soups?
Smoothies are great. Yep. That's a really good call. You'd be surprised how good the likes of like any kind of chard or spinach, if you just use the leaf part only, so take out any stalk or stem, goes in a smoothie, and it won't really impact the flavor. If you've got avocado on the list, obviously that'll add a creaminess too. And even if avocado is only okay, if you're making an effort to eat more calories in the morning and to eat more like higher fiber foods in the morning, my recommendation is to, if it's an okay avocado, you could use that in the smoothie to help pack it out with those good quality fibers in the earlier part of the day. And then aside from that, just your traditional ingredients like your best nuts in their butter format can be good if you've got any. That's obviously very much an individual thing, depending on the profile. Dairy, if it is highly ranked, my recommendation is to investigate a multitude of different types of dairy/dairy replacement. So the plant-based and the sheep and the goats, get more variety and that would be good for smoothies. And then outside of that, just any fruits really that are good for you. Does that help?
Yep, definitely. Sweet. Yep.
Awesome. Also, Tanya, another recommendation I can make for a breakfast that can be quite high in vegetables is roasted, like a roasted butternut squash or pumpkin, just in like quite small cubes with a couple of handfuls of spinach, some mushrooms roasted alongside, and then a couple of eggs. And even if eggs aren't high and you only want to have one, it's like we call it like a basically like a sweet potato or pumpkin hash, and basically just chop it all up quite small, chuck it in a bowl, chuck your egg on top, add a little bit of dressing if you need to. That can be quite a pleasant breakfast. Louise, my wife, is a diplomat, and that's spot on for her. And I'll actually have that with her because I just think it's great. Like it goes down pretty well.
Thank you.
Yep, no worries. I would say like I'm used to looking at people's food lists and understanding that they can seem a little restrictive, but people don't get excited about vegetarian food. I'd say that we're moving towards people getting more excited about vegetarian food, which is really good because it's a mythology. Like the amount of different things you can do with vegetables to add color and diversity to your plate in terms of look, feel, touch, and taste. Most importantly of all, it's almost limitless. So I would say if you're really struggling, talk to your coaches. They'll have ideas. If they're struggling, they'll redirect you to us, because between us as a team, because there's 10 of us in our team, just about, we've got a lot of experience of making food a bit more interesting. So don't be frightened to reach out.
Okay, thank you.
And Nathan's eaten enough of my cooking in the last month to say that I'm pretty inventive.
I can vouch for it.
I can. Oh, sorry.
I think Shamali had a question.
Yeah. So listening to your presentation today, I'm realizing I'm questioning whether I'm actually a connector, the type, because I'm not a person who can have breakfast. I've never been able to have breakfast. And I tend to eat completely different from what is suggested. I tend to eat around 10 o'clock and then a late lunch. And then, if I want to lose weight, and a really small dinner, which is what I'm not doing. And I kind of tend to eat light and then I end up eating too much. So so I'm wondering whether I need to redo my profile again, because that eating times, all of it is not me.
Well, I would say that obviously there's always a difference between what you're used to and what your habits are and what the recommendation is. But I would say as well, Shamali, there is flex in a connector profile around food. There are a few opportunities for how you would lay out a good connected day. There's the ideal, and then there's probably an option B, because it's quite a flexible body type. And the other thing I would say as well is you have to remember that food is really low down the list for connectors in terms of the impact it will have on your body. It's relatively low order. What's way more important is who you eat with, how you feel when you eat. If you enjoy the food, you need joy in the food. Then it needs to almost be fun eating it. So those factors are more important by far than perhaps being really finicky about the when or the content. I would certainly say this, that not identifying with the timings does not mean you aren't a connector. There's a lot more complicated.
Okay, right.
It's whatever you've got used to. Bearing in mind that the way the human body works is, even though there are optimal windows for timing, so if you imagine that the chronobiology, so the timing of your day, it slaves off your highest priority. That is to say that the thing you need to fit in right at the right time first is your highest priority. And that really is what determines your next priority's timing, and that determines your next priority's timing. A really good example is an activator. An activator should eat light in the morning so that they can train hard and not be tired when they go into the training, because the activator body will slow down when it eats food. So it's far better for an activator who is on in the morning to slow down later in the day. So we provide them with their biggest meal at the end of the day, because we know it will knock their body into rest and digest, which will mean they stand a chance of actually sleeping properly, and they can come back the next morning and hit it hard. So I've just given you there is a good example of their number one priority is what determines when they should eat. So if I'm moving at 8 a.m., then I shouldn't eat before, really. I should probably wait and eat at 10, because my number one priority should take precedent. If I'm going to move at 10, which is actually,
and I can relate to that, because if I eat in the morning, I'm sluggish.
Yes, exactly.
People keep saying breakfast is the first thing, important, and they're like, I eat that, and it's like, oh God, I want to go back to sleep.
And Shamali, if I'm not mistaken, you're a cusper. You're a cusper as well, like a 155 or a 150, around that area. Do you remember Shamali's number, Nathan?
No, I don't, but sure we can actually find it.
So what we find with cuspers as well, there can be an almost like there'll be an oscillation between how you prioritize, because you're actually hormonally shifting your sensitivities quite regularly if you're right on the cusp, or you can be. And the other thing that goes into that is sometimes you'll have someone like, I know 155 is not too far away right now, actually, or was on the call not too long ago, who is absolutely food mad, and food is really important to her, even though she's a connector. But it's because there's a little bit of a throwback, because she's only 5 degrees off being an activator and has actually come out as an activator in the past. So there can be a duplicity there, and a bit of a variation in how you feel and where your body's at will make quite
so what I'm hearing is we can whether we are connector or activator, or that can change based on where you are in your life.
You can shift around 20 degrees left or right, and you can migrate towards the center, which will mean you'll share more traits with other health types, but you're still going to be somewhere in the activated connectors near that same area. So the variation is there's a level of variation available, but it's relatively, there's a limit to how much you can shift.
Right. Okay. I won't take too much of your time.
No, you're fine. That's what the purpose of the call is, Shae. So, like, it's absolutely fine. Like, the whole point is for you to take our time. That's why we're here. Like, So I would say, just so let's just to wrap it up. If you were to tick every timing box for the next week, you might find that what happens is all of a sudden you think, I could actually eat a bit of breakfast today. Like it's all of these things being slotted into place is what will really allow the body to kind of fall into its natural rhythm and say, oh yeah, that's how I operate. That's what I need. You know, so if the social's good, if the mind's good, the social's good, the movement's good, the environment's good, the food's good, then all of a sudden, and it's in time, all of a sudden you'll find your rhythm becomes very organic and starts to come through naturally. But you could be 10 o'clock is a perfectly good time for a connector to start eating as a meso it's perfectly good. And I would say if you're training at the right times, like if you can get into movement, and I'll say training, that's a bit of that can be misleading. We're talking about movement that you enjoy. That's what we're talking about. We're not saying you need to be in the gym. It could be a hill walk, take the dog for a walk. It could be a run. It could be a dance class. It could be a sport that you're into. Any number of ways you can move. And for you, having fun and having a bit of play in amongst that movement is really good too. If you're getting that in at the right time, you'll find your appetite will be synced, if that makes sense.
Okay. All right. I'll keep that in mind. Thank you.
No worries. Thanks for your question. Cool. Anybody else got any questions on personalized nutrition? I realize that we've run over. Everybody, you're free to go if you need to. But we were a bit slow starting just because people were struggling to get in. So if anyone else has got any questions, we're happy to answer them.
I've got an idea for Tanya, if she's still on the call. Is she there? I don't know, Tanya, I just tried to look. Oh, yeah. So I'm a diplomat, Tanya, in the whole veggie thing for breakfast, I think is, can be hard to get your head around. But what I do is when I prep, I chop up my top veggies, like broccoli, radish, onion, capsicum, what else put in, zucchini, and then I just put them in little containers so they're all ready to go. And then in the morning I just like pop a bit of olive oil in the pan, and then I just kind of saute them all, and then towards the end I throw in like my leafy greens because they don't take long to cook, and then kind of split it and chuck in a couple of eggs, and then I have call it my eggs and greens. And then if I'm being a bit naughty, I try and top it with like a bit of avocado. But I actually just went through my profile, and Chris and Nate, thing to point out is how our foods are always changing as well. And I've just written down my excellent foods, and they've changed. I've now seen the eggs have been removed, so I had to read why that's happened. So now that will have to change. But also making a frittata with all your veggies, and I went through a phase of doing that. And then because us dipmats, we can kind of eat the same thing every day, and we creatures a habit. That's another option too. I used egg whites. You can in the supermarket buy just straight egg whites, which was a lot less than too many eggs. And then you can just kind of bang it in the microwave or heat it up, or I just eat it cold, but a good way to get in heaps of veggies as well. So hopefully that helps.
Yep, cool, thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, that's good. Thanks, Kate. Like, I must admit, I'm a big fan of a frittata. Like anything that's good for activators and good for diplomats in our house is useful. So like they're always a real go-to, because obviously It's actually protein for me and some good veggies. And then Louise can do eggs as well. So it's good. Final note, because I feel like we're probably at a natural point to wrap up now, is we were lucky enough at Pro Series this year, which is our big event where all our coaches get together and do about 2.5 days of training or lectures with some of the key players who brought this app into being. One of the speakers this year was a lady called Daniela Ramey, and she was really, really amazing to listen to. And her job is essentially to take research and essentially drive what the app is prioritizing in your food lists, all of us, based on the most up-to-date and continuing and improving understanding of food and research and the research and the human body. And that's what she does for a living and has done for the last sort of 7 to 9 years, I think it is. And basically, there was a couple of things she said that really, they kind of, I wouldn't say shocked me, but it was good to get the clarification. And that clarification, point number one, I would say, is variety is king. Even if you have foods that are only okay, if you diversify your diet by including them on occasion and looking at those okay foods and getting them in, even if you're adding in 2 or 3 okay foods once a week that you haven't eaten for a while, and you cycle through them every 4 to 6 weeks, there's a lot of benefit in that, because the human body has a strong and broad set of nutrients it needs to get in, and that you simply can't do that with too narrow a diet. So as Kate said, those of us who are good at eating quite habitually and getting in a rhythm with it, there's a beauty in that, but it's absolutely imperative that perhaps every Friday or every Saturday, or when you've got more time, you have a think about, what haven't I eaten for a while? Getting that in, checking it on the list, seeing it's not an avoid. If it's an avoid, then it's an avoid. But if it's an okay, then it could well be worth, even sometimes it could well be worth having it that weekend, having it every so often, because we do need diversity in our diet to really satisfy the body's nutritional requirements. So yeah, just bear that in mind, team, that diversity is still and will always be king, even when you're using Shae. The other big takeaway was, if you had a choice between diversity and organic food, for example, or if you were looking at food sources, it's still better to eat with diversity than to be really finicky about where your food comes from. Now, I just want to caveat that with saying, the more you can buy your food from local sources, the benefits of that for us as a race, as a species, long term are huge. There's no doubt about it. But for you and your health right now, if the choice is between, it's too costly for me to eat organic, so I've stopped eating peppers or capsicums, I've stopped eating spinach because I'm worried about phtalates, or I've stopped eating this because I'm worried about the farming aspect. Like, that is not necessarily going to be the best thing for your body long term. So I would say, vote with your feet, eat good food, buy good food from good sources, and support your local people, because that does improve the nutritional content. But if you're struggling to find what you need from those areas, then eat as diversely as you can first to look after your health. Because my belief is that for us to move towards better choices and having a better nutritional environment, we still need to be well to be able to make that happen. So put yourselves first in that way, but support where you can, support local, and support the most natural farming methods available. And because that is, the reality is long term, we have to do that. Wicked. Right. Thanks very much. Thanks everybody for coming. Thanks for those who are watching this in retrospect. We really appreciate you taking the time, and hopefully you found the website now. You're actually utilizing that, those who are watching this in retrospect. And we really hope that you're getting something out of this session. If you have any questions, you know where we are, and we will speak to you, catch up with you all soon. We're on again next Tuesday, 11 a.m. for personalized movement. Very similar session to today, but we're dialing into obviously the physical movement aspect of the app, and your needs for your health type and your body and what they mean. Cool. Look forward to it. Thanks, team. See you all soon.